it's James, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go with the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week, the 19th of December to the 25th of December. I'm not recording this on Christmas, sorry, and I didn't really schedule it on it. This is when I'm doing it, the 27th, and whenever this gets released, probably the 28th or something. Anyway, some for some videos I thought were decent. They did pretty good. All right. But this is, I just wanted to get one more digest in the year before I get out. It's from MercuryFalcon. Congratulations on getting the monetization back on your channel. Even though you make like a joke of it, it's like I can say whatever we want. Fake fans of Yu Yu Hakusho podcast. Just a little baity kind of little thing, and it's a conversation with MercuryFalcon, Chad, and Ben. Look, I gotta tell you, he was real MVP on this podcast because he had such in-depth knowledge of the series, which was very valuable for myself and John, and for Chad. Well, yeah, who, we hadn't really seen Yu Yu Hakusho in a while, and just been like, did that happen? It's like, yeah, that's in the adaptation. That's in the original. It's just changed into this sort of thing or whatever. And those sorts of insights were really what I watched this for, without it being like a video essay. I was just not really in a mood to absorb something like that. I think it was nice having this as a really chill bros podcast. It seems that they all watched it together. And it was just a lovely time, and especially the attitudes that they were bringing towards it, of just like being very upfront that they liked it and had these particular issues. I will tell you my issues, not that you care or asked. I think my one gripes, I really liked the adaptation, the live action as well, and I think my gripes with it really was that like Kuwabara got no W's and Hiei got no L's. There was no instance when Hiei lost to anybody, which is a real, a whole thing of his character, in my perspective, is a very big chip on his shoulder and constantly trying to prove himself once he's defeated by Yusuke early on. And I could be wrong about that. People know about it better than me. But the fact that he didn't have that kind of made him more of a background and ancillary character, at least it felt that way. You really didn't get a whole lot in this one. And then Kuwabara, like, he does get a success. He has some successes in an actual defined character arc, which I liked. The success being, like, getting the spirit sword. But he doesn't beat anybody. He never ends up winning against any particular. So he doesn't have a sort of overcoming or of a obstacle or triumph in that regard. And I know these sorts of things don't always have to be through enemies or something. It doesn't have to be that simple-minded. But I guess it's like, that was what was really cool about him in the series, you know what I mean? That, like, despite coming from the position he was in, he was still able to have that, those occasional victories, even against, like, unsuspecting. It's like, no way the Kuwabara could beat this guy, and yet he does. So it's I was sort of missing moments like that. But yeah, so I just realized, with 1,000 stupid words, it's, I've talked about Ben's videos, with One Piece and everything. I really like them. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I blanked on that. I didn't recognize with the three voices. There's not like as much, just the one static visual for the live action and everything. No, but it was just a really chill time. I will admit I watched this like yesterday a lot, or the day before, because of like as I was working on something. But I was like, I wanted to talk about it. It's not every day that MercuryFalcon uploads a podcast of this sort, and I was interested in the subject. But yeah, I liked that to start with, yes. Glass Reflection with another big retrospective. This is definitely the type of, and he said it as much towards the end, where it's like, I really want to make more of these in the future. So we're not hearing from him as often, but then we do get these much larger, comprehensive retrospectives. But like this one in particular, maybe it's just like I've seen Spice and Wolf this year, and maybe I was looking for a more holistic, more thorough sort of thing with them. He was indulging in some stuff with differences with the manga and light novel and anime and everything, but I felt like a bulk of the video was really laboriously describing and recapping the anime that he has a preference for. Even though it was interesting, it was like he has a preference for the anime, maybe just for the sake of the medium and stuff, but then took issue with how the light novel would recanonize something that the anime made anime original. And I can understand the gripes about that, and that seems kind of his major point at the end, where he's just like really frustrated with it as a franchise, that it's just kind of doing whatever. The light novels themselves have not changed necessarily, and he might be maybe making a mountain out of a molehill, but it was like the VR experience or something like that, adding this anime original character into it. But like at the same time, that's something the anime was how he got into it. It's how a lot of fans got into it, and there is something to be said about an adaptation of something, creating something out of the existing material, making it better than what it was. Like you think about I know Batman's kind of a rough, different, not exactly the same kind of example, because it's not a linear story. It's a character in a franchise that has many different authors and iterations and interpretations and everything. But it kind of reminds me of Batman being an established character, Joker being an established character, and then creating Harley Quinn. I could be wrong about this, but I believe she was created for the animated series specifically. And she had a, bit role, kind of ensemble role like everyone else, like you would normally expect at first, but then fans were starting to like her, the creators were starting to like her, and doing more with her to where she frontline, headlines whole movies now and TV shows. She's like probably the fourth biggest character now. If you think about Batman characters, Batman, Robin, Joker, Harley Quinn, maybe Catwoman's in there. But like even then, like Harley's had, how many solo movies has Robin done? Or only Joker had just gotten his own movie. But that was before. But that was after Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. You know what I mean? It's just really phenomenal what they've done with that character, and that all came from an iteration. And I know it's not quite the same example as with Spice Wolf, but but it's sort of like embracing the franchise and that multiple iterations of something that allows viewers and audiences to take it in different approaches, mediums that they prefer. Arcana prefers anime. I prefer anime, but other people prefer light novels because they like to kind of imagine the voices in their head, I guess. Not to knock on them, I guess. I don't know. Or manga or whatever. Like people have preferred mediums or VR, whatever. And interweaving those experiences and everything. I guess it really was, I was sort of expecting or looking for a little bit more. He covers one arc, but it was, but I guess I would have liked to have seen a full comprehension of the series as a whole, which is a complete series. It's very rare for a light novel series like this to have a complete light novel, a complete manga. It sounds complete, at least. I know that there was a sequel and there's an ongoing light novel sequel, I believe, with her daughter or something. I don't quite know. I was looking into it briefly when I was watching it for the first time, and I was only interested in checking out the anime. But a lot of people are probably like that, and obviously this is all coordinatedly timed, and he was giving his expectations of what he's kind of expecting to see. I liked his interpretation or his guess that this is going to be more of a Kino's Journey situation, which kind of clicks, right? Because they're both light novels, kind of episodic stories, the little arcs in between, but can be kind of told in little. They're not super connected to each other. Like one has to follow the other type of deal. So there's a little bit of like shuffling you could potentially do with the new Kino's Journey adaptation. What they did was a greatest hits. They kind of just took a bunch of the fans' favorite story arcs and just did those. I don't know how successful that was. Yeah, but then with this one, it's probably similar, where there's flexibility in this new adaptation, and apparently has similar staff and everything. So it was nice to see a lot of that. I just don't know if it needed to be 2 hours. I don't know if it needed the entire recap of these multiple arcs. I like the idea of diving into the complexities of the economics and the schemes and the what actually is going on in Spice and Wolf. I think what's remarkable about it, and what could have been worth analyzing for me, what I found interesting about it, was that it's very similar to a lot of the other like game anime that you might not know the rules of, like Akagi with Mahjong, Sangatsu with Shogi. They're still able to tell these stories and convey the right emotions without you really understanding the details. So with Spice and Wolf, I didn't really quite know why Lawrence was screwed, but I could tell he was screwed and what he was trying to do to make up for that, or his relationship with Holo, and the messy details of that. I don't remember most of the actual arcs and details like that, but I think that could have been worth analyzing instead of really trying to explain the core plot or the narrative of it, because it's like, what is this arc for? It's to cement their relationship in this particular way, or overcome this obstacle, or introduce this aspect of the world, or something like that. I don't know. I wasn't totally on board with it being 2 hours necessarily, but Arcana does a good job with keeping the attention and everything, of course. But yeah, I think it was pretty alright. The final boss of harem anime from Gigguk, his last video of the year. That's not everyone's last video of the year, pretty much. Maybe not some people's, but of course. This was a lot more memey than I was expecting. For some reason, I feel like I may have said that about several of his videos in the past, but this one even more so. You feel like he's really reaching with the sound effects and some of the some of the thing toward the beginning where he was like using sit snap, where he's talking about harem anime and whatever. There's some like, he's kind of making a joke out of infidelity or something, and she has like a shotgun or whatever, and it looked really awkward and cheesy. I don't know, it was strange. But it's obviously the humor that he's embraced and his audience, his core audience has embraced. The things that he's constantly joking. He's streaming a lot more. And of course everything with his audience with trash taste. I just feel like his humor has definitely been warped and morphed, or maybe it's been this way this whole time, and it's just becoming more prominent because he realizes people enjoy it or something. I don't know. I don't really find his humor all that funny, but really what I keep enjoying about his videos, regardless of that, is just his genuine interest and intrigue in these titles that are not the most popular thing. 100 Girlfriends might be, it's not like completely obscure, like no one would click on it type of deal, but especially like the past couple of videos, the way he's been marketing them and everything, it's like, this is a completely unknown manga probably for some of these cases. So I like that he's choosing pretty out of the box topics, and that this is also just like like treating it with respect, I think, or just tackling the harem genre. Although I will say, it was treating it with mostly respect, and just in terms of the show itself, like really understanding what it's doing and showing it in good faith, and demonstrating it, and also going into the manga as well, and getting you interested and intrigued in it, really, and understanding what it's doing. But I will say, he does kind of fall into the pushing other harems down. Right, where it's like, unlike other harems where it's just the guy and the other girls, and these girls, when he's like, in this show, every girl gets development, and like, you care about them. I'm like, does that not apply to most harems? Like, I guess not. That just seems strange to me. But whereas like, he's right, where it's not necessarily about the romance, it's more like a sports anime. But a lot of harems, it's not as much about like whether they get together or not, because it's sort of like such a side thing. I think it's more of just a platform, or a genre. It's the same thing with any genre. It's to create a framework for dialogue, characters, and situations to have these interactions and to have this sort of thing. And that's interesting and fun for people, right? And it's not, I just don't know about generalizing an entire genre like this. And harem, it happens all the time, especially for how clear that structure is. That scaffolding of harems makes it seem like they're all the same. it doesn't help itself. The genre definitely doesn't help itself from avoid. It's not beating the allegations, is what I'll say. It's not gonna. I get it. Yeah. But to me, it's like, I don't know. It's like I think if you take any harem seriously, you see it, and it's like, okay, what does it actually explicitly do? I would love for people to actually kind of go into some of these titles and be like, yeah, so they spend 2 episodes with this character, an episode with this character, an episode with this character. This was with everybody, or like, what does it do? You know what I mean? It's just like antics ensue. This is such a big thing with the encyclopedia. They continually generalize and just kind of blasé things happen. Hijinks ensue. Okay, but like what? And I don't need. Yeah, it goes to the same cavalcade. This is a pool episode. This is a sport, the festival, or whatever. Sure. This is a spot. This is a hot springs episode. Sure. But then it's like, okay, does it really just go through all those beats? Just say that then, and like, oh, what characters does it focus on? What does it maybe do that's a bit of a twist? Or what is the main character going through? Because he might be going through something. The way Gigguk talked about this series with 100 Girlfriends and showing and demonstrating the characterization of the protagonist, as well as the other girls and stuff like that, and also just the author's intentions and stuff like that, and kind of celebrating and embracing it. I don't know, it's the right attitude to have, but it's just unfortunate that it's like he does the YouTuber thing, and it's not just a YouTuber thing, it's everybody. It's it's the encyclopedist, it's people on Twitter, it's people on Reddit. Unlike other anime, unlike other harem anime, this one's good. I don't know why we have to keep doing this, guys. Can't we just say the title's good? And this is what I took away from it, what I really enjoyed. This scenario was really funny and interesting. This character was really cute. Could you get something? Like, And if you can't, then sure, that's fine. Then don't speak. Just don't speak. I don't know. Maybe that's being reductive or something. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I like the sentiment here, and the comedy was strange. I don't know if the editing was especially like abrasive to me. It just felt very, almost like Game Theory. Actually, not gonna lie, kind of reminded me of that sometimes. Very memey and I could take it or leave it really. But I did like the video though. Animebackwhen's have been on fire these past couple weeks, just like boom, boom, boom with videos. A lot of the short one-off type of things, but they're fairly easy to produce. But that's great, man. It's just like keeping up, man. But yeah, I wanted to mention his Orane video because I love Orane, the cat player. Gandalf is his musical cats. I'm like, hell yeah. I definitely want to check out more of your videos of anime I haven't seen. But I thought I would check back into this. It's great. I like the vibes. It was so interesting that it was your first time that you heard of a Yashike, and he's like, I don't know what that is. First I've heard of it. I'm like, what, really? Because there's a lot of anime in this genre, and it's funny. This Yashike, I believe, I could be wrong about this. It wasn't really coined that early in 1992. I don't think. It's a little more of a mid to late 90s thing. I'd have to see when Yokohama Shopping Log. Yokohama Shopping Log was 94 to 2006. So it's close. It is fairly close. I did find that interesting to make that comparison with this title, I guess, because it is characters you don't normally see it's just this young boy and this old man. You think about that for the Aishike genre. It's a little more feminine. It's just a little more female oriented, I guess. Kind of the examples I think of, and I could be wrong, I'm misinterpreting the genre or something, but it is, for me, it's like YKK. Aria is a lot like this. And I wouldn't have necessarily pegged Arani as this, but I think that was an interesting observation, and it was just like, I don't know, but I like it. Yeah, but I'm happy you enjoyed it, and I liked your handling of talking about it, going kind of play by play about what happens in it without you said like, I'm gonna stop here because from here it just gets kind of really fun and trippy, and you're able to talk more substantively, not just like giving recap or whatever, but really talking about the aspects you like while showing off those really cool visuals and those really fun, eventful things that happen in that rest of that OVA that you're not going to talk about explicitly, but you're still able to show your viewers. I think those are just really interesting, or not interesting, just a smart placement in terms of pace of a video, basically. Yeah, I just wanted to shout that out. Merry Christmas. It was a lot. I really should rewatch it. It's been a little while, been a couple years probably, but yeah, I loved it. It's nice. Okay, and now what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones I thought were the best videos of the week. Undertale poop post. NicoBane is a patron. Man, this was funny. It's so funny too because I did watch this at 1.5 speed at first. Then I rewatched it, but it was just both funny. It was funny really both times because it just has this really infectious and manic voice line, which I don't know if was taken from something. I don't know if this is something you wrote or this is like something you're animating over some audio that somebody did or whatever. But if this is all you, that's great. It was really funny. And it's obviously not something that like I would expect to see in our current year in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen. This is definitely something that you would see when Undertale was really popping off. The kind of the wide-eyed excitement of this new thing, Undertale, that could tell that you're playing a video game, and the flower, and then being friends with Sans, and then but then I was doing my thing, and they told me it was wrong. Like it wasn't. This would definitely get lost in the shuffle of stuff from back then, especially with just the sheer amount of crap that was being made around this series in its popular fever pitch, right? All the animations and fan stuff, definitely. So kind of weirdly dated almost of its time, but I didn't even think about it being dated because it's just like, oh, funny Undertale thing. And of course I really love your animations with just kind of the expression work in this is so perfect and is really like what's really worth rewatching this a couple of times. It's fairly short, just like 2 minutes, but like it's the character expression work. It's not as much a focus on movement and articulate amazing animation or something. It's really like the kind of cartoons we like around here. This is we're nostalgic for like Newgrounds and everything with the that was a similar approach back then, and maybe they didn't necessarily see it that same way, but it's very much like anime when I'm thinking about it, where it's very more focused on the individual drawings because there's so much fewer of them due to budget constraints or whatever for certain TV shows back then and everything. And just reliance on those sorts of things, and the humor is really fun. It's just great, even though it's like kind of the time, I guess. But I then what really got me at the end was because it feels like something you're just ranting off, because again there's no like source audio for this, but so I assume all of this is kind of original. But at the end we're like, you kind of break character, you're like, it's been drowned, it's all been drowned, it's been drowned again, or whatever. That was really disarming, and really tied it up as like one of my as a great for the kind of pushed it over for a second. That was fantastic. It was really smart. But yeah, it's very, very good post, very funny, good meme. One Punk Tactics AMV from KaiserNeko. Oh no, I'm very jealous. It really made me realize the daunting a task or the idea of making a One Piece AMV, because the sheer amount of good stuff you have to work with, and just all the things you get in the complementary nature of it. Like, you can use all these speed mapping that he does here, a lot of the slow motion he does, or the it's so cringe. Oh no. The whooshes, right? Oh no. It was just paced exactly the way, like, it's just very indulgent, with using kind of the really playfulness of the track, the lyrics, and very bombastic beats and stuff, going to different of the highlights, kind of the best parts. There are definitely certain episodes where it's like you can pull multiple clips from that and you don't have to download every episode of Wano or something, or like every episode of the raid specifically. In his case, he pretty much is mashing together a bunch of fights from, it's just Zoro versus King, Luffy versus Kaido, Sanji versus Queen, and a little bit of Kid Law, and it's like what you expect, and kind of a little bit of Robin, and little bits that you can use, but going through them very, very quickly. A little bit of color grading too, a little bit of masking towards the start, but just really just a thing to, like, I'm just gonna flex and make a little edit here, and that's just fun. Yeah, I do like that a lot. It's a fun time. Yeah, but I was just like supremely overwhelmed and jelly. Yeah. The deadly problem with Spy Family. Best guy ever. He's back with cooking a video essay. In one of those. Remember we used to make those? And yeah. But like the title is a lot more, and thumbnail are definitely a lot more on point and choice than they might seem to be. This, I'm not gonna lie to you, that just, if I didn't know it was you and it was this title and thumb, ain't no way am I clicking on it, like, to me, because I haven't seen Spy Family, but also it's just like very YouTubery, and it's just kind of 2016 era thumbnail where it's not really a thumbnail, it's a screen cap. But hey, it worked for Trixie for years, and can't knock it. It's doing well enough, I'd imagine. I don't know, for your metrics, I guess. I'd kill for 10K in 2 days. Hell yeah. I'd kill for 10K at all. Anyway. But because it's you, it's like, I know it's quality. And I gotta tell you, I mean, I've only seen like maybe a handful of Spy Family videos, again, because I haven't seen it, and I'm trying to, I'll get to it when it's done type of deal. But this is a rare occasion, so I'm gonna check it out. And you really nail down the proper kind of appeals that people have with this series. I've heard people talking about it and seeing it advertised and everything. I'm like, this is what you watch it for. This is cool. This is exciting. This is worth it. And all that selling was really effective and important for this video, where you're talking about a problem you actually really do have with it. And again, the title and thumb, if you know the video itself, are very relevant, because it is about Yor, and it is a deadly problem because it's about her killing people. And I think you do multiple attempts to kind of dissuade, just like, I'm not trying to be moralistic, even though it is killing people for money, and you can make all that argument and everything. It's the precise what it seems to be, and I could be wrong, but it seems it's like you mostly have a problem with the execution of this idea of her being this assassin, and having it be very literal and visceral and gruesome, in contrast with wholesome spy stuff. Like the guy, the main character Lloyd, is doing his best, and you love him as Sigma male, everything, and being a great guy, and Anya just being kind of the emotional core. So what is there? Yours is the other, is like the tertiary. There's three main characters. When two of them are this good, what's going on with this third one? And it's like an especially kind of strange contrast. And I did see someone in the comments being like, you should look into some of his interviews where he was very open about the story not exactly going the way he was intending it, but it was a lot of it were editor choices, but that's what made the manga popular. And he's like, well, I'm happy I'm getting success. I've failed multiple times with manga, and He's just happy to have a W. That people are enjoying it. It's getting a full anime by Wit. Looks gorgeous. You know, it's doing really well. It's getting a movie soon. Things are going great, and I like that you're very self-aware of that too. It doesn't feel like doom scrolling or something like that. But I think you were able to give this critique, and I think a fairly nuanced and like holistic critique, even including the manga, where it's like, even in this case, that it kind of isn't that explicit or gruesome in this scene, but then in the anime, because it's with studio and people are kind of expecting that level, and they're for maintenance, for consistency's sake, they have to make it look like this, and it really clashes in a distasteful way, potentially, at least to your perspective. I guess maybe to play devil's advocate, maybe. I think my two contentions, I guess. I really think your argument's very well articulated. I guess my two reservations about it is that the story's not done. This very well could be all intentional. This very well could be like, yeah, this is meant to be like a sour note, and she's kind of she is in the wrong, or at least doing this for the wrong reasons. And there's something where like that's a huge character thing for her. So you might actually have a situation where she ends up getting the most development or something in comparison with Lloyd and Anya, potentially. So to me, it's like that's why I always hesitate about, like, I'm okay with talking casually about One Piece, for example, in our podcast or through here or whatever, on Twitter or whatever, because it's like that's just casual whatever. But dedicated essay videos for me, I really hesitate to make something like that because I don't have the necessarily have the confidence in the way that, like, is this going to go the way I'm because it's all predicated on what's going to come and everything. I like to have the whole thing, or at least what I consider the whole thing is, like, I consider Berserk 97 a complete package, even though the manga's still going. It was kind of designed in a self-contained way, so that's why I'm able to be like, that's Berserk, you know, and I can compartmentalize it and not have to worry about, oh, but how does Griffith react when he gets or whatever. I don't have to even think about that or consider it, I guess. So it's the case that's the case in some areas, but I think for here, especially with being a Jump series or Jump Plus, you know, that would be a big thing for me, where it's like, well, maybe he's cooking, maybe he's really doing that for a reason, you know. And what was my other reservation about it? Oh, the other thing, I think this is my other thing, is that you're having this much darker edge. Contrast is meant to have that contrasting thing, and it's sort of the sugar and spice, bittersweetness that is part of the success, where you're getting this kind of broad appeal for people who really like those sorts of ultraviolence type of thing, but maybe he's not so into the wholesome cutesy stuff with Anya or whatever. It's to create a further broader appeal, perhaps. There might be people who would like have their own concerns or whatever. Or maybe the Anya stuff is too cute for what the series is actually trying to go for, or more serious thing or whatever. Another thing that was reminding me of this is like, how do we make this character likable? The struggle of this when they're a paid assassin. That immediately reminded me of Gogol 13, the anime assassin. Like he's originally from manga, and so is Yor. But in terms of this anime manga type of thing, you really don't get more ubiquitous than Golgo when it comes to morally gray sniper assassin it's, you almost call him an antagonist in some places. It really depends on the situation. That's what's really interesting about Golgo is what really works with that series is the characters he's surrounded with. He is a conduit to tell these really thorny, difficult stories with other characters that have a lot more moral complexity to them, or just straight up evil. And it's sort of the I remember like one of the episodes I saw of the 1971 Golgo that just got released. Like, we didn't even know it existed, and it just got fucking found in a vault somewhere. Crazy. They re-aired some episodes, and one of them I watched, it's sort of this like really tragic thing where he falls in love with a woman on an airplane, and then later on, is on a mission to assassinate somebody, and the woman sees him doing it, so he has to kill her, and he just does it, and he has very little emotion to him, and it's more of just really tragic, and you feel for it's like you see that he's not wrestling with it. It's not like in Berserk where Guts is doing all this like really bad in the very beginning, Dark Swordsman, where he's very callous and abrasive and mean and rough, but like towards the end of that arc, you have that picture of him kind of like and that gives him like, oh, there's more to this guy. Oh, okay, right. Not really so much with Gigguk. He doesn't really do that. And it's more of it like as life goes. It's like the way I feel about it. At least it was the emotion I was trying to get from it. So it just making me think about where it's sort of a tragic flaw of her character, where she is very compulsive to her job. She can't stop doing it, even though she doesn't have as much of a reason for doing it anymore, which is a lot like addictions, right? When you don't necessarily drink to enjoy it, or smoke to be socially cool or anything, it's a compulsive habit. That's when it becomes an addiction, and Yor needs help. But I think it would take something, either her dying, it maybe even not, she's fully accepting with dying, but it seems the one line she doesn't want to cross is Anya seeing it. I don't really know if that's actually happened or not. I don't think it has. So it's like, I would imagine we're waiting for that moment, and all of this is sort of like what's building up towards that, basically. But I can understand Nate's reservations about the current moment, where I think you voiced it about it as like, yeah, sure, this can get resolved later, but that doesn't change the fact that it's uncomfortable now. I'm reading it now. Like, it is a moment to moment. Even when the series would be hypothetically done, if you were watching the series for the first time for a lot, like once I start getting into it, just because it's done doesn't mean I know what the ending is and I know that's where it's going. Just because it's like, no, that they're doing it for a reason doesn't mean I like the thing that they're doing in general, right? So he's still valid. You're still valid. I think giving food for thought here was, just made me think, and I really enjoyed it. It was good. STEVEM's The Anime Problem. Don't feel too bad about not getting this video out in a more timely fashion, because these sorts of arguments that you're crafting with a lot of different examples and as thorough as one could be about this topic of what is anime, and whether it's a useful term anymore or whatever. And funny enough, the video I'm talking about after this one tackles that kind of a same problem too. But I think it just makes sense with the amount of research you're doing and the cohesiveness, while not necessarily nailing down an answer. I like that this isn't a problem that has a definitive end goal thing, and I don't want to make my own argument. I still have my own perspective about it being like it's animation made in Japan for a Japanese audience, and it's really just to narrow down what we're talking about so that we can categorize and I think like the video afterwards I'm talking about this, to call ourselves an anime fan is to talk about specific things. It's like, oh, you're an anime fan, so you like Frosty the Snowman. It's like, well, yeah, I guess, but that's not really what I was referring to. That sort of thing. And so I just all the different examples. Granted, a lot of them that I knew about and would kind of observe and absorb throughout or whatever, but not necessarily make a dedicated video over. But I think it's just the act of doing that and framing that in a way and putting it on such a trusted platform as your channel that I think a lot of people take a lot of value in and listen to you seriously, is always just a good thing to do, regardless of the redundancy of the argument or the dating things or whatever. I think it was an important video to make, and that you specifically made it. Yeah, I enjoyed that a good deal. But I do want to end this video, this digest, on BennettTheSage. Look at that. Yeah, like a semi not good, decent type of thing. Like literally, I think last week, and I'm talking about him again because I was very fascinated about the history of anime and. Well, I'm looking at losing a history of anime and Christmas. That particular framing doesn't make a ton of sense to me because he's narrowing down a very particular problem. And I will also complain about, or critique, I guess. The other thing about this, it's like, this video is 24 minutes. It could have been 12. Because half the video is like his typical kind of review of Nutcracker Fantasy, of an anime abandoned type of thing. Whereas I would have preferred this to be more about just really focusing on this issue that kind of came up when talking about this being anime or not, and the fact that we really don't know the people that made this stuff. You have it for Nutcracker Fantasy because it wasn't through Rankin Bass or anything like that, but he was in the process of connecting that and looking into MOM Productions and stuff like that. I liked that he was honest in the video and got really angry, not angry on camera, but he was talking about while researching, he got extremely visibly angry that this stuff isn't documented, that we don't know anything about these people, and that they worked so hard and everything and it didn't get the credit and everything. Yeah. To me, and especially the part where he's starting to list over and over like a number of these like obscure names that he probably was reading off the puppet, like some of the puppeteers that were from Nutcracker Fantasy or just from people he would encounter and everything. This sort of ambiguity or anonymity of these artists that actually made a difference in people's lives, in other filmmakers. The fact that it's been parodied and homaged and taken influence from for really big motion pictures. Like the fact, I mean, I don't know if any of Rankin Bass's productions have been put in the Library of Congress, but this year, Nightmare Before Christmas was. And Bennett uses an interview clip from Tim Burton talking about, it was like Grinch and Rudolph and the Rankin Bass, the short films and stuff that were made in Japan. And I don't want to come up with like a superiority type of thing, but it's like, I'm very interested in that sort of subject as well. And I found it incredibly interesting how before these specials, they had that Rankin Bass contributed with this, I assume is MON Productions specifically, because I believe this was Mochinaga, on a Pinocchio TV series, a whole TV series. And like, it's not as ubiquitous as the specials that everyone knows now that were actually influential in their own way. I can understand Bennett's focus on that, and I can also on that note, it's like I can also understand that because he chose Nutcracker Fantasy specifically, he wanted to really cite Little Drummer Boy, Rudolph, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, but not Frosty the Snowman, which was a similar Rankin Bass production that doesn't properly really credit the people who made it, besides the sound engineers and the voice talent, which is what all they contributed, as well as just saying Mushi Pro for animation. And I was watching it this Christmas, or at least a clip of it, or I think we watched the whole special actually. It is remarkable how you can look at Frosty, watch Frosty's the original Frosty Snowman. Obviously, I've seen it I don't know how many times, just over the years of being a person in the U.S. and just catching it and everything, but then having the context of like what Mushi Pro would do animation wise with very deliberate posing and reused animation and looping animation and like characteristics and mannerisms. The character designs are from the West. The character designer is credited because he's American. But then like the actual motions and methods of making this title are very similar to what Mushi was making back then. Very similar. It was just really interesting. And you can also, and I was also looking into this about with, so I forget what Twitter, it was actually, they were making a similar deal or whatever. I was looking into how Inspector Gadget, there was a pilot episode of that was animated by Telecom. And I believe just like a first season, as in general, was animated in Japan by somebody. Maybe it was Telecom. But I remember like checking out the pilot specifically, which was through Telecom, and trying to recognize their style in through watching Inspector Gadget, and realizing, and Steven touched about this in his video, where the storyboard is king. That mentality with being commissioned to make these TV episodes of an American property. Part of the reason that we like anime is because they are doing types of jokes or telling different kinds of stories that the West are not telling. And it's a different sensibility. I was surprised in the Inspector Gadget pilot of how much slapstick there was. Like unrelenting, beat after beat, hardly any story, just one slapstick joke after another. And yeah, there's some gag anime that probably do that too, like Tensei Bakuban or whatever. Maybe that's the case. You know, that's not out of the realm of possibility for anime. I'm not saying they're all amazing narratives or really fun. Like I certainly don't enjoy a lot of the manzai style comedy in some of the popular anime, like Gintama or whatever. It's just a particular sensibility. It's not exact, and it's again, it's not also to say that anime is as above doing this sort of relentless slapstick comedy. Of course not. It's just like when I was watching it, I was like, this is so much like a U.S. cartoon, but it doesn't feel like anime. Even though I can see the mechanisms of like, I can see Telecom animating that or story, having that in a particular way. Not to mention, the entirety of the soundscape is Western. So the use of the music, the use of the sound effects, the voice acting, there's a lot of, and I think I like that STEVEM, sorry to come back to his video, it was very covering all angles for it. But Bennett definitely taps into the emotional aspect, which is it almost felt black-pilled, where it's like, I can't believe we don't get to know these people. We don't even know if they're alive anymore. And buddy, I mean, I figured you knew this, but like, this is a rampant problem. This is not just with stop motion. I like that he targeted stop motion specifically, and I really thought that comparing the Japanese and English versions of Nutcracker Fantasy and talking about its icky, weird elements and whatever, and criticizing the film in this way, I felt that was kind of a waste and completely divorced from this really emotional, interesting, important subject of giving proper credit, appreciating this art and who made it specifically, and the influence that it had and everything like that. I just feel it's like that first half could have been more spent on really appreciating the craft, like really taking some time to observe the film and just being like, yeah, they created this entire set. Look at how much details on this table, or like appreciating what they did. And then you can have the gut punch of like, we have no idea who did that. We do not know who did that. But like I'm saying, it's an egregious problem with Rankin Bass for sure. But like, and I don't even know if Nutcracker Fantasy necessarily had that, because it's not a Rankin Bass production, right? It's a weird disjointed argument almost, because like you're talking about Nutcracker Fantasy, which is not right, but you're complaining about what Rankin Bass did. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, do we have the credits for Nutcracker Fantasy? I assume we do. Anyway, I just would have felt like we can appreciate the craft of stop motion animation and really champion is like, yes, this is also anime. It's interesting. The Anime Encyclopedia actually omitted puppetry and stop motion in the first edition, and then they included it in the third edition because, yeah, it is also animation, a very important sector of animation for sure. And but like what I said, what I mean by being the black-pilled, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that there's no way to properly credit everybody for everything. There's just no way. There's certain decisions where it's like, it could have been the series director, could have been episode director, could have been animation director, could have been the script writer, could have been the storyboarder. Who came up with that? You know, and at what stage was it coming into, right? At what stage was that developed in? It could have been a last minute change. You don't know, and like the authors, sometimes they can be transparent about like what their intentions were or what they planned. You think of such a perfect moment as the last page in Ashton no Joe, and you're like, that they had to have had that in their mind from the very beginning because it's so perfect. Nope. Chiba just thought of it. He had no Kajiwara, I guess, didn't really have an idea or the thing to put there at the end, and the deadline was coming up, and he's just like, fuck it, and drew that. It's unbelievable. Not to mention, you don't know the happy accidents. You don't know what ends up being like, oh, that connected that way thematically. It's a whole thing with art. Anyway, this is separate from what he's talking about. I completely get his argument, and I really appreciated the emotion behind it and the somberness that he took it at. And it's like, yeah, we don't know any of these people. It's like Mochinaga. It's fun to name drop that because I can pretend to know who he is, but I really don't. Even if I'm saying his name as much as I can and thinking about him, I still don't know. I don't know much about him. But you could say that about nearly every creator in almost any media. How much do you really know about your favorite author? How much do you really know about a director? There's some that are pretty well documented, which is nice, Hayao Miyazaki, and that's from the work of preservationists or people that really took the time to translate something, to translate interviews, learn more about these people. And Bennett just happened to find a very, very neglected sector. And that was why I was like, and this was like separate from his upload here, but it just happened to loop into it, where I did tweet out where I was like, I really think Animation Obsessive should put out an article diving into some of these titles like Frosty or whatever to really get to the bottom of this, because they can find this stuff. Maybe it's not out there, because he was saying that like a lot of the information he does have for some of these was what he could find. It was the people that actually took the time to make a behind the scenes type of featurette or whatever for Rudolph specifically, and gets to have a more detailed thing of all the credits, and that was somebody's work. And Clements did a similar thing, right, with The King's Tale and all these early anime and stuff like that, and going through people's memoirs and documenting stuff and recording and trying to piece together a story, trying to piece this stuff together. But this is the very, and then of course also he ends the video kind of a bitter note, not even bittersweet, just kind of a downer of just like, as I was editing this, I had a whole ending, but then I saw that Nutcracker Fantasy is going out of print from Discotheque. Yep. And maybe it'll come back in print someday. Maybe it won't. But every title has that issue. That is a constant battle. And I'm very happy to be a part of that fight. For as, like as endless as it could seem, it's just like every title deserves the best possible quality. Maybe when we return to Nutcracker Fantasy, we can really give it even more of an upscaled whatever. I don't know. I don't know what it's missing currently that that it could be improved upon. But and on the bright side, not to advocate piracy or anything, on the bright side, both versions are available on YouTube right now. And that at least gives some hope to me, because if it's there for people to analyze, to play back through, and to study, to ultimately get those names out there. The thing that you want, but don't necessarily do that, because it's a whole separate thing, and it's way more intensive and a long process. But the first step is really just accessibility. I think I know Angel's Egg is kind of in this weird legal zone. It's not very licensable or whatever because of some technical mumbo jumbo. I don't quite know the story, but I've been told it, but I don't. It's confusing to me. I don't want to misinterpret it, but I just know it's not in a good place right now. But at least it's on YouTube, and people back then, when it was a bit of a rash of people, Demo, Chris Stuckman, Bob Samurai, etc., that all kind of together were like, dude, holy shit, this film, and really brought it more into public consciousness. That's just what has to keep happening. And you just got to find those things and find things you're interested in and just put it out there. And there might be some people you get, and it is what it is. Anyway, sorry, there's a bunch of Discord notifs. I really liked the video. I think it could have been better constructed, or done a bit differently or whatever in this and that place, but the emotion and intention were there, and it was really lovely. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Okay, that'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. That is the last digest of the year. I'm so sorry I'm not doing a best of or a big thing or whatever at the end. I could, but I got vacation tomorrow through the 31st. I'm not going to be here. So I'm happy I was able to get a digest and all. I will see you all in the new year. You guys are great. You have a great rest of the year. Yo, peace.